All right, check it out. Listen, if you're a single guy out there, it's time, bro. It's time for you to step up to the plate. If you're single, you're a lonely guy, it's time for you to find that wife. It's time for you to find her. Look, and today on this video, I want to talk about 3 keys to finding a wife. And these were 3 keys that worked for me. But before we jump in, I want to talk to you about number 1, why. Why do I want to find a good wife? Why do you want to find a good wife? Why did I want to find a good wife 13 plus years ago? What was it about finding a wife that was so important to me? Here's the key. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22, it says this. It says that he who finds a wife, right? He who finds a wife finds what is good, right? So we find what is good, and he receives favor from the Lord. So when I find a wife, I'm a single guy, and I find a wife, it says that I'm going to receive what is good from God, and I'm going to find favor from the Lord. So let's think about that for a second. If I want to be in a framework, right? If I want to be in a position where I am on good terms with God, what God is saying in his word is, I'm giving you a framework that when you find a wife, you find good things and you find favor from me. I don't know about you, but that's what I wanted, right? So this is the first number reason why. Second reason why, I personally believe that as a man, if you're going to live your full potential, you're going to live to your purpose, you need a partner in life that you can partner with and build a legacy, build something of longevity with together so that you can be an impact in your community in this world, right? Families are what builds communities. Families are what keeps communities strong, especially within our community. We need men that are willing to be able to look for a wife, and we need women that are willing to be married to men to build a community and build something great in this world. This is what we need. So those are the 2 things, right? We know that we're going to find a good thing. We're going to find favor. So here's the 3 things, the 3 simple keys that I use to finding a wife. Like I said, I've been married going on 13 years, and this is what I implemented when I read this scripture and I said, look, God, I want to find a wife. Number 1, I started with prayer. Number 1 started with prayer. So here's the thing, and this is the way I thought about this logically. If God is giving me the framework, if God is helping me to understand what I can expect when I find a wife, it would only be logical to me to go to the source to find out what this woman is supposed to look like. What is she supposed to be like? What is she supposed to have? What are the attributes that she's supposed to provide? What is her makeup supposed to be? So I decided I'm going to go to the source, and I started praying, and this is what ended up happening. As I'm in my prayer time, as I'm just spending this time trying to figure out and asking God what my wife is supposed to be, who she's supposed to be, God began to start giving me this list of attributes. He started giving me a list of things. And he said, Nick, these are the things that you need to be looking for. These are the things that you need to keep an eye out for when it comes to your wife. Because in my mind, I realized, look, if I'm going to ask and believe God for the framework that he set, and he said that I would find a good thing and I would get favor from him, then I'm going to believe God to show me the attributes that I needed to be looking for. So I started, number 1, with prayer. Number 2, it required patience. Here's how that story went when it came to patience for me. So I started this journey. I'm looking for my wife in prayer. God's revealing these different things to me. He's showing me all these different things, right? In November of the year that I started looking for a wife, I was in the back of a church building, and I was at an event. There was a woman that was up front that was giving a testimony, and she was talking about what God had did in her life, and the good things that God was doing, X, Y, Z. And God spoke to me. I heard it audibly. In my ear that was supposed to be my wife. The woman that was up there was supposed to be my wife. And it freaked me out, bro. Because here's the thing. I'm praying about it, right? But up until this point, none of this stuff is like audible. None of this stuff is like, hey, this is who she's supposed to be. Hey, this is what she's supposed to be. None of this stuff is audible. But God speaks to me now and says, this is supposed to be your wife. Now, here's the crazy thing. When me and my wife started dating, this list over here that I got in prayer, guess what she was? She was everything on this freaking list. everything that I was looking at, and I was like, okay, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. So that's November of this year, of that year. I get God speaking to me and telling me this is gonna be my wife. April of the next year is when I finally speak to her. I hear this in November. The next year, April, is when I finally speak to this woman that God said was going to be my wife. This is where patience comes into play. Look, I could have easily just gotten up and said, hey, God spoke to me, said this is going to be your wife. Obviously, I would look kind of crazy. She'd probably be like, yo, you're out of your mind. Get out of here. But I decided to wait. I decided to be patient. I wanted to make sure that what God was showing me and revealing to me was, in fact, what I needed to be looking for in this woman that I was talking to. So patience. A lot of time as young men, especially when we're single, especially when we're lonely, we just want to jump into any kind of relationship, right? That's how I was before I got married, before I even got saved and became a Christian. I was just jumping from here to here to here to here to here just because I wanted companionship. I wanted not to be lonely and not to have that feeling of being lonely. But a lot of times, and we know it, you probably, have this experience, those women weren't the right women for me to be with. So here we go. Second key was patience. Last key, most important one, most often missed, is preparation. I had to prepare myself. Now, I had to prepare myself in two ways that I had to prepare myself. Number one, I had to prepare myself internally. What does that mean? I had to start working on my character. I had to start working on my integrity. I had to start working on the value as a man that I was going to be bringing to the table when it came to pursuing this woman and when it came to me showing the man that I could be. How did I do that? So when God spoke to me and showed me this and I approached her, we began to start talking, I decided that I was going to court my wife, or I was going to Christian date my wife. What this meant was that the whole time that we were dating, the whole time that we were together, we didn't physically do anything. We didn't kiss. The first time I kissed my wife was at the altar. That was the first time that I kissed my wife, was at the altar. Now, I know in the 21st century, we're thinking, man, that's crazy. That's too old fashioned. That's this and that. But here's what it did, and this is what it provided for me. When I held off on the physical intimacy and I decided to court my wife, it gave me the ability to not be clouded and have a clear understanding of who I was pursuing, right? See, oftentimes when we get physical, we get intimate like that with a woman and with another, like a partner or somebody that we're getting into a relationship with, it often clouds our clarity. And what I mean by this is that we see the red flags, right? But because we're being intimate, because we're having sex, because we're doing all these different things, we tend to want to ignore the red flags, the things that God may be showing us that might be saying, hey, that ain't the one for you, bro. We tend to ignore. Why? Because number one, we're men, right? When it comes to the sex, if the sex is good, let's be real. We're going to be like, yeah, I see it. But, I can just kind of push that off to the side. And that's the problem, especially when it comes to finding a wife, right? I don't want the red flags. If I see the red flags, I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm not dealing with it, right? So that's how we were able to do that. And it took me being able to say, hey, I'm going to court my wife. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to honor her. I'm going to respect her as a woman. I'm going to show her her value as a woman by not taking that step and pursuing things sexually before we get married. The second way I prepared myself was externally, right? I started getting my money right. I started making sure I bought a house. I started, making sure that everything with my career was in order, because here's my thing. I knew as a man, I didn't want to come to the table without being able to bring some kind of value. Not saying that my wife needed it. I mean, she had her own career. She had her own things that she was doing. And even now to this day, she's doing her own thing. But I had to let her know that, look, as a man, my job, my responsibility is to show up, to bring value to this relationship, and to be a partner that you can rely on. And so I began to start preparing myself. So if you're single and you're out there, you're wondering, hey, how do I get started? Look, there's some things that you need to get ready internally and externally. So here are the three keys, man. Like I said, it was prayer, it was patience, and preparation. Those are the three things, this little triangle, that helped me to find a wife. And I want to encourage you, look, if you're single out there, you're lonely, start looking for a wife. Proverbs 18:22, it tells us there's two things that I can get, two things that I'm going to receive when I get and find a wife. I'm going to receive some good things, and I'm going to receive some favor. Look, like I said and I mentioned before, if you're a man and you're trying to fulfill your purpose, try and live in that purpose, this is part of the equation. I firmly believe this is part of the equation because families are what builds our communities. It's what helps us to build a better world. And so if you got some value out of this, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe. On this channel, we're passionate about helping modern men who feel stuck, who feel frustrated, helping them find a simple path to living their purpose, to living their power, and living their God-given position. So hit that like button for me below. Until next time, this has been Nick, Life Recreated. Keep learning, keep healing, and keep growing. Peace.